conquest was only the visible part of his power. Behind the armies, the horses, and the battles, he was building something far more sophisticated, a system. A system that could organize warriors, move information, manage conquered territories, and keep people loyal across enormous distances. And one of the most remarkable parts of that story began not with a battle, but with a captured scholar. Because Genghis Khan eventually understood something that many conquerors before Genghis Khan united the Mongols. Tribal and clan loyalties were central to steppe society. A warrior's strongest loyalty could be to his relatives, his clan, or his tribal leader. Genghis Khan knew that this could become a threat to his new state. If the old divisions remained intact, the alliance he had created could eventually fall apart. So he reorganized his people into new military formations. Warriors from different backgrounds could now serve in the same units. Former enemies could find themselves fighting side by side. The old tribal structure was being weakened, while loyalty to the Khan and his new political order became more important. The man who had united the tribes was now changing the very system that had once divided them. Genghis Khan's reforms reorganized steppe society and weakened the importance of traditional tribal affiliations through a decimal military structure. Genghis Khan's system had another unusual feature. Ability could matter more than birth. A man did not necessarily have to come from the most powerful family to rise. If he was capable, loyal, and successful, he could gain responsibility. Men such as Jelme and Subutai became famous examples of commanders whose abilities brought them enormous influence. Think about what this meant to an ordinary warrior. His future was no longer completely determined by his family background. Skill could bring status, loyalty could bring opportunity, and success could bring power. Genghis Khan wasn't simply ordering people to fight. He was creating a reason for talented men to compete for his trust. The careers of Jelme and Subutai are frequently discussed as examples of advancement based on ability rather than simply aristocratic birth. Then there was the Khan's elite personal guard. It became known as the Kesikten. At first, calling them bodyguards might seem to explain everything, but their role was much bigger. Around the time of the 1206 Kurultai, this elite force was greatly expanded. Its members served close to the Khan. They saw how decisions were made. They became familiar with the workings of government and military command, and some eventually became important leaders themselves. So the Guard performed two functions. It protected Genghis Khan, and it helped him identify, train, and evaluate people who could later serve the empire. In a sense, it was not just a bodyguard, it was part of his leadership network. The Kesikten was significantly expanded around 1206 and served functions extending beyond personal protection, including connections to administration and leadership development. Now, we reach one of the most overlooked parts of Mongol power: communication. Imagine controlling an enormous empire without phones, without radios, and without the internet. Yet orders still had to travel quickly. The Mongols used a relay network known as the Yam. Riders could move between stations where fresh horses and supplies were available. This allowed messages to travel vast distances much faster than ordinary travelers could manage. An army could be hundreds of miles away, while information from the Khan's court was still able to reach its commanders. Orders moved, intelligence moved, news moved. The Mongols did not simply possess fast horses. They had developed a system designed to make a huge empire communicate. The Mongol relay system, known as the Yam, used stations and fresh horses to move messages over great distances. The Metropolitan Museum describes its ability to connect extremely distant parts of the empire. And now comes one of the strangest moments in this story. In 1204, Genghis Khan defeated the Naiman state. Among those captured was a Uyghur official and scribe known as Tata Tonga. Genghis Khan recognized the value of something his growing empire desperately needed: knowledge. The Mongols possessed a powerful oral tradition, but a growing empire needed records, it needed written orders, it needed administration. The Uyghur writing system was adapted for the Mongolian language. Suddenly, information could be recorded and transmitted in a completely different way. And think about the irony. A conqueror famous for his armies understood that writing could be almost as important as weapons. Sometimes, the pen helps the sword reach farther. The Mongol Chancery adopted an Uyghur-derived script around 1204, while Genghis Khan's administration also drew on the expertise of Uyghurs, Khitans, and other peoples. There is another famous part of Genghis Khan's story, the Yasa. Popular accounts often describe it as a huge written law code created by Genghis Khan, but the historical picture is much less certain. There is no surviving original copy that allows historians to reconstruct one complete written code with confidence. What we do know is that Genghis Khan established rules, discipline, and administrative practices for his new political order. Later, Mongol rulers continued developing those institutions. So what exactly was the Yasa? Was it one complete written law code? Or did later writers gather different Mongol customs, commands, and regulations under one famous name? Historians still debate the question, and that is what makes the story so fascinating. Sometimes the truth behind a legend is more mysterious than the legend itself. The nature and extent of the Yasa remain disputed. Encyclopedia Iranica cautions against treating the popular image of a single comprehensive written legal code as established fact. So, what was the real secret behind Genghis Khan's extraordinary rise? It wasn't just the bow, it wasn't just the horse, and it wasn't simply fear. It was the combination: mobility, discipline, intelligence, communication, administration, and loyalty. He took the strengths of the Mongolian steppe and turned them into something much larger, a political and military system capable of fighting, governing, communicating, and adapting. And now comes the frightening question. What happens when a system like this is turned against the richest and most powerful kingdoms of Asia? Because the next chapter would change everything. The Mongol military machine was ready, and now it was going to war against powerful kingdoms, against heavily defended cities, against rulers who believed their walls and wealth could protect them. But they were about to discover something terrifying. The Mongols did not fight like ordinary armies. They moved differently, they planned differently, and sometimes they could gain the advantage before the enemy even understood what was happening. Episode 3. The Conquests begin. Subscribe, because the most shocking chapter of Genghis Khan's story is still ahead.